Hello guys, so welcome back to this channel. So in this video I'll be solving exam-based questions from chapter 3 and chapter 4. Okay, yes, and apart from that one, welcome to the part 2 Rhema of PHY101. Now let's start with the very first question. Now the very first question, they said, before we go, let's start with this last question first. Okay, let's create space for the rest of them. They said, "Hey boys, this question is coming out from Projectile." Okay, yeah. So please take note of all these questions. Okay, yes. The reason why I'm telling you guys to take note is to know how to solve them. Right? So it's very important. Okay, yeah. They said a boy is projected at a boy is projected at such an angle that the horizontal range that the horizontal range that the range that the horizontal range is 3 times the maximum height. The angle of projection of this ball is, so the answer here is 53.1 degrees. Very important. Okay, so take note that they said a ball is projected at such an angle that the horizontal range is 3 times the horizontal range is what is 3 times the maximum height, right? They say okay, the angle of projection of the ball is what is 53.1 degree. Okay, so this is the angle at which range is equal 3 times 3 of the maximum height. Okay, so that is just, it's very easy. So this question is from where? It's from Projectile. Okay, yes. Now let's continue the next question. This question, I said the displacement of a body in the positive x direction is, so this is the displacement is 3t raised to power 4 plus 2t, right? Plus 2t raised to power 3 plus 4t raised to power 2, then plus 5t. Okay, so this is displacement. So okay, let's say displacement of a body in the positive x direction is this, right? Yes, they say calculate. Okay, they said calculate the acceleration after 1 second. The time is what? The time is one. I mean, after 1.33 seconds. So the time is 1.33 seconds. Okay, we are looking for the acceleration. Now this question is coming out from instantaneous acceleration. Okay, yes. Now if you see this type of question, it's very easy. Okay, to solve this type of question. This is displacement. This is displacement of the body. Then they said we should calculate the acceleration from this displacement afterwards 1.33 seconds. So this is very easy. Okay, yes. Now take note for those that don't want to solve it. Okay, take note. To solve this type of question, we need to have the knowledge of differentiation in calculus. Okay, yes, it's very easy. Okay, so please take note, if they ask us to calculate for velocity, we will do what? Very important, we will differentiate. We will differentiate one time. Okay, one time. We differentiate rather, we differentiate once. Okay, yes. But if they ask us to calculate for velocity, to calculate for acceleration, we differentiate what? We differentiate twice. Okay, yes. So if they ask us to calculate for velocity, we differentiate once. We input time, we put 1.3 in wherever we see t, get our answer. Okay, but if the answer is calculated for acceleration, we will differentiate twice. Okay, now let's do it. Okay, so now this is the displacement, right? Now let's differentiate this. Now how do you differentiate? For those that don't know how to differentiate, okay, this type of differentiation, this type of yeah, this now this the type of differentiation we're going to use is on the this question is coming out from, I think, power rule. Yes, yeah, power rule. Yeah, power rule power rule. Okay, yes. So how do we differentiate this? It's very easy. Okay, we're using the power rule. Okay, yes. How do we differentiate this? Using, because there are different ways to differentiate to differentiate functions. Okay, there are different way. Then we have the one of the ways using the using power rule, product rule, chain rule, quotient rule. There are many. Okay, yes. So that is for calculus. Okay. Now in this type of question, we use what? The power rule to solve this type of question. Okay. So to differentiate this type of question, why are we using power rule? Because if you look at it, each of these guys, they have powers, right? Yes. So how do we differentiate using the power rule? It's very easy. What we do, what at first we will do, what we okay, yes, at first we multiply. Okay, okay, let me just show you. Okay, so at first, at first we multiply the power, with the coefficient, That is the very first thing we're going to do. That is step one. Step two, we do what? After multiplying the power with the coefficient, we multiply the coefficient rather, English. So we multiply the coefficient. With the power. Then the next thing we're going to do is what we subtract 1 from the power. So that is how you differentiate using power rule. Yes, very easy. So let's do it. Y is equals to what? Now, the first thing we do, remember this t, they are the variable, right? Yes. Now t is the variable, right? Yes. Now what is the coefficient? The number close to the variable. So t, this is the variable, right? What is the coefficient of t? To be 3. Coefficients, these are number they are close to variable, right? For example, I say 2a. What is the coefficient of a? It's 2. For example, 5 over 2a. What is the coefficient of a? 5 over 2. So it's very, very easy, okay? Now let's continue. Now they said the first step we're going to do is what? Multiply the coefficient with the power, right? Yes. So let's start. Where is the coefficient of t here is what? Coefficient of t here is 3, right? So multiply 3. They say multiply the coefficient with the power, right? So multiply the coefficient with the power. The power is what is 4, right? 3 times 4, right? Then times this normal t, right? Yes. So multiply the coefficient, this coefficient with the power. This is the power, right? Yes, multiply them. Then don't forget about the t, then times t. Then the next thing we are going to do is what? Subtract 1 from the power. So this is the power, right? We subtract 1. So that is how we do it for everything. It's very easy. So let's do it, okay? So remember, I told you guys that if we are looking for, velocity, we will differentiate once. But in this question, they ask us for what? Acceleration. So we differentiate twice, right? Now let's continue. So multiply the equation with the power, right? So t will be what? Let's continue to be 3 times 4, then times t, then we subtract 1 from the power, right? Then plus 2 times the power is what? 3, right? Then times t, then subtract 1 from 3, right? Yes, then plus 4 times the power is what? 2, right? Then times t, we subtract 1 from the power, right? So 2 minus 1, right? Yes, then plus look at this one, 5t. 5t means that t has what? 5t means that this t means that it's raised to power 1, right? Any t raised to power 1, you give that same thing, right? So t here, the power of t here is what? Is 1, right? Yeah, so any t raised to power 1 will give that same thing, right? So we'll multiply 5 with the power, right? So times 1, then times t, subtract 1 from what? From the power, right? Yes. Now before I continue, I'll tell you guys something. Okay, I'll tell you guys something. Okay, so 5t, I'll tell you guys something. Now, let's say for example, if you want to differentiate using power rule, and you want to differentiate a value that does not carry a variable, differentiation of a value that don't take any variable will be 0. I don't know. Now please take note. Okay, when a number is just standing alone, does not have a letter. Let me just break it down. Now, what does this mean? That when a number is standing alone, it does not take a letter with it. If we differentiate that number, it will be 0. I don't know if you understand. Okay, yes. So differentiation of this one will be what? 0. For example, let's say we have to differentiate 6. For example, since 6 does 6 carry any letter? Then no. So I would just put 0. That is just it, okay? But in this question, this is the question, okay? So these are the question looks like. So there's no 6 there. So I'm just telling you, okay? Okay, now let's continue. So y will be equal to what? 3 times 4 will be 12, then times t, then 4 minus 1 will be what? 3, right? Then plus 2 times 3 is what? 6 times t, then 6t, right? Subtract 1 from 3 will be what? 2, right? Then plus 4 times 2 is 8, then t, 2 minus 1 is 1, right? So raised by 1. Then plus 5 times 1 is 5, then times t, 5t, 1 minus 1 give us 0, right? Yes, remember, I need to raise power 0 is what? 1, right? So a raised power 0 is what? Is 1. So since t is raised power 0, t will be what? Everything will be what? Will be 1, right? So 5 times 1 will give us 5, right? Yes. So we are successfully differentiate this. We have differentiated this using what? The power rule, right? Yes. So this is it. Now, if for example they say calculate for the velocity, we have how many times have we differentiated? Just once, right? So we have differentiated. Then for example they say calculate velocity. Our time, the question is the time is 1.33, right? So we differentiate once, then we put t. Wherever we see t, we put the values, right? Yes. But this one is what? This one is acceleration. So what are we going to do? We differentiate twice, right? So, right? Yes, we differentiate twice. So we when we differentiate once, we got this. So we differentiate this one again. Let me understand, okay? Yeah, so let's differentiate this value again, okay? So let's differentiate it. Y is equals to, because we are looking for acceleration, right? 12t raised power 12t raised power 3, 12t raised power 3 plus 6t raised power 2 plus 8t raised power 1 plus 5, right? Yes, since we are looking for acceleration, we differentiate this one again, right? Yes. So I told you guys how to differentiate, right? Yes, so multiply the power by the coefficient, right? So y will be equals to, if you multiply 12 times what? 3, right? Then times t, take away 1 from the power, right? Then plus multiply the coefficient by the power, right? So 6 times 2, then times t, take 1 from the power, right? So 2 minus 1, right? Then plus multiply the coefficient by the power, right? So 8 times 1, then times t, take away 1 from all the power, right? Yes, then plus. Now, what I said earlier, if you look at it, do 5 have any variable? No. That is just standing alone, right? Yes. So when you differentiation of a value, I told you guys earlier that does not take any variable does not take any letter is what? 0. So here will be what? Here will be 0, right? So differentiation of 5 was 0. If they ask you differentiate 6, it will be 0, right? Yes. Differentiate 10, 0. So that's just it. Now let's continue. So now be what? Now be 12 times 3. Let's continue. So here will now be 12 times 3, which is 36, right? So y will be equals to what? 36t. 3 minus 1 is 2, right? Then plus 6 times 2 is 12 times t, 12t. 2 minus 1 is 1, right? Then plus 8 times 1 is 8 times t, 8t. Then 1 minus 1 is 0, right? Yes. So n raised by 0 is what? Is t raised by 0 is 1, right? So n raised by 0 is 1. So everything here will be what? Will be what? 1, right? So times 1. So everything here will be what? 8, right? Yes. So what I'm going to do next is very easy. What is the time? The question is what? T is what? T is 1.33, right? So wherever you see t, you put what? 1.33. So let's do it. So y will be equals to what? 36 bracket open. T is what? T is 1 point. Time is what? 1.33, right? So time is 1.33 all square. Then plus 12 bracket open. T is what? 1.33 all raised power 1, right? Then plus 8. So let's do it with our calculator. We get our acceleration. Let us do it straight. Okay, so it will be 36 bracket open, 1.33 bracket close, then plus 12 bracket open, 1.33, I'm coming, 1.33 bracket close, then plus 8. So our answer is 71.84. Answer is what? 71.84. So the answer is C. Okay. Yes. So this is how you solve questions. Okay. When they give you something like this, if they ask you to calculate for the velocity, just differentiate once. When they ask you to calculate for acceleration, differentiate twice using power rule. So that is just it. Now let's move to the next question, which is this question 4. All right, so very easy, very important. I'll take note of these questions. Learn how to solve them. Okay, and one more thing, please and please, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please and please subscribe. Okay, support us by subscribing. All right, so now let's move to this question 4. Okay, this one is coming out from vertical motion. Okay, vertical motion. They said if a ball falling from a height, okay, let's say this is the ball. Let's say this, I'm coming. Okay. I said if a ball falling from a height traveled the last 2 meters. Okay, let's say this is the ground level. The ground. Okay, so the ground. Okay. If a ball falling from a height, let's say this is the height. We don't know. The ball is falling from the height. The ball is falling. Okay, the ball is falling from a height. Travel the last 2 meters. Okay, let's say this is the last 2 meters. So I mean 2.5 meters. Travel the last 2.5 meters. in 1 second. So this is 2.5 meter, right? So the time it travels this 2.5 meter, the time is 1 second, right? Yes. So they said determine the distance traveled before the last 1 second. So they're asking us to calculate for what? Remember, the ball was falling from this distance, from particular height, we don't know. So they were able to measure that, that and that at the last 1 second, the ball traveled a height of 2.5 meter, right? Look at the question. I said a ball falling from a height traveled the last 2.5 meter in 1 second. Determine the distance traveled before the last seconds. So the answer to calculate for what this height we don't know. Okay, yes. Now remember, the whole height from here to the ground is what? For example, let's take this whole height from here to the ground to be what? To be h, right? Yes. So the whole height, which is h, or the other, okay, total height, right? Now the whole height will be equals to what normally? The whole height will be equals to what? Will be equals to this h, right? This h plus what? This one, right? Give us everything, give us the whole height, right? Because this one plus 2.5 will give us the whole height, right? Yes, look at it. Okay. Now I want to look for this the height before. Look at, they said determine the distance or the height before the last 1 second. So before this height, they say we should calculate the height before the last 1 second. So we want to calculate for the h, so letter h. So how are we going to do it? It's very easy. At first, we use these two parameters to look for the velocity with which it falls from this place to this place. Okay, let's look for velocity. When we get the velocity, we can easily get this height. Okay, so which formula are we going to use? Normal equation of motion formula. S equals to ut plus half at square. Remember, we have v equals to u plus at. V square is equals to u square plus 2as, right? Okay, since we are dealing with vertical motion, s will turn to h, right? Then a will turn to g, right? Yes, a will turn to g. Okay, so yes, a will turn to g, a will turn to g, s will turn to h, right? Yes. Let's look at the question. They say I want to look for this height, right? So let's use this height and this time to look for velocity. So does this formula have height and time? No. So we're not going to use this one. The formula has time but does not have height. What about this one? This second one has height but does not have time. So we neglect this one. We are going to use this one because why? This one has height, it has time. Okay, so we use these two parameters to look for velocity. So it's very easy. So the height is what? Height is 2.5, right? Then equals to u, which we are looking for. Time is 1, right? Then plus. Okay, let me use this place. All right. Okay, let me just use. Okay, there's no space. Okay, let me just continue. So height is what? 2.5, right? 2.5 equals to u. We don't know u. I say time is 1. Then plus half. Okay, plus half. Then remember, since the body is falling down, remember going down is negative. So here is negative, okay? Yes, negative. Since the body is falling downward. Okay, using the first coordinate. Okay, G is what? We all know G is 9.8, right? Yes, G is 9.8. Then T is 1, right? All square. So here will be 2.5 is equals to u times 1 give us u. Then minus 9.8 times half is 4.9. 1 square is still 1. Anything times 1 will still give us that same thing, right? So we learn like something like this. We are looking for what? We are looking for u. So if we're looking for u, so this one we cross over here. So if we cross to be what? 22.5, will be 2.5 plus 4.9. Please take note of the way I solve it. Okay, we want to look for u first. Okay, 2.5 plus 4.9. Okay, our u. Well, let's do it. So 2.5 plus 4.9 is what? 2.5 plus 4.9 is 7.4. So the velocity is 7.4. U is what? 7.4, right? Yes. So the velocity with which the ball falls from here, the ball was falling. The velocity with which the ball is falling is 7.4. Okay, we are getting the velocity now to 7.4. What next? Want to look for what? Want to use this velocity to look for the height. How are we going to do this? Use that third formula. V square is equals to u square plus minus 2gh, right? Yes. Okay. Yes. So we are looking. Remember, initially, the ball was dropped from particular. Initially, u will be what? This u will be 0 because the ball was dropped from particular from from a was dropped from a height. So we don't. So it was dropped initially to be 0. So we have something like this. V square is equals to 2gh already, right? Yes. Okay. Now let's continue. All right. So yes. Now let's continue. Now you see this v and u. Remember, u was the velocity calculated that this u is the velocity with which it's it is the ground, which is the final velocity. Okay, so v is setting as u here. Okay, so v will be what? 7.4, right? So let's see how the what bracket open. 7.4 all square is equals to 2gh, right? Remember, g is what? G is 9.8, right? 9.8 h we don't know, right? So let's continue. 7.4 square. Okay, 7.4 square is what am I doing? I'm coming. So 7.4 square is 54.76. 54.76. Okay, 54.76. Okay, is equals to 2 times 9.8 is 19.6, then times height, right? Divide both side by we divide both side by 19.6. Okay, 19.6. This one will cancel this. So h should be equal to what? So 54.76 divided by 19.6 is what? Is 2.7. Okay, so so our total, we got our totals our total to be what? 2.7, right? Yes. So the height we calculated, this height is for this guy, okay, which is 2.7, right? Yes. Now what are we looking for? We're looking for, look through the question. They said determine the distance traveled before the last 1 second. So we are looking for this height here, right? We are wanting this our total height to be what? We're going to our total height to be, we're going to our total height to be what? 2.4, 2.7, right? Remember the, okay, now let's continue. Remember for this formula I gave you guys, let's put it here. Total height is what? 2.7, right? Is equals to h. This is what we're looking for. Then plus 2.5, right? Yes. So if you do everything, this one comes over here, turn to minus, right? So now be 2.7 minus 2.5 is equals to h. So let's subtract it. Okay, so let's subtract 2.7 minus 2.5 give us 0.2. Okay, so we have made 0.2 here. So let's do it again. I'm coming. Let's use the old value. Let's use the old value earlier. Okay, I'm coming. So let's use the old value. Okay. Remember our velocity was 7.4, right? So our velocity was 7.4. We use this formula v square equals to u square plus minus 2gh, right? So our u we calculated was 7.4. So put it here. Remember, the ball was dropped from particular height, so initial velocity will be 0. So here will be 0. So we left with v squared equals to 2gh, right? Yes. Then v is what? 7.4, right? All squared is equals to 2 times g is 9.8, then times what? H, which is the total height, right? So let me also do it like this. Total height, right? So 2 times 9.8, I think that is 19.6, right? Yeah, 19.6. Let me just do it. Okay, so 2 times 9.8, 2 times 9.8, 19.6. Okay, so 19.6 times h will give us 19.6 h plus, h total, right? Then let's take square of 7.4. Let's do it again. Okay, so the square of 7.4 is 54.76. 54.76, right? With that both side by 19.6. 19.6. Some cancel. Okay, so divide by 19.6. Divide by 19.6. So the whole value is 2.793. Okay, let me just use the whole value. So our total height is what? Our total height is 2.793. Let me just use this one. Okay, yes. So get our total height to be what? This one, right? Remember this. So let's put it here. So 2.793 equals to h plus 2.5, right? So do plus 2.5 comes over here to minus, so 2.7 793 minus 2.5. Let me see if we have our answer now. Okay, so minus 2.5. Yes, so our answer here is 0.29. So 0.29. Okay, so the answer here is B, 0.29. It's an exam-based question. So that is how you do it, okay? So let's do more question. You understand more. Okay, so that is the answer is 0.29. All right. So now let's continue with next question, question 3. Okay. All right. Okay. Now they said a projectile is thrown horizontally. Okay, let's say this is a projectile. It was thrown horizontally. Okay, the projectile was thrown horizontally with a speed of 20 meters per second. What will be the speed of the projectile after 5 seconds? Now, this speed they are looking for is known as the final velocity. Speed and velocity they are the same thing, right? We use them interchangeably. Okay, though they are not the same way, you know what I'm saying. Okay, so let's continue. Now, what will be the velocity or what will be the speed of the projectile after 5 seconds? Now, this speed or velocity that tell us to look for is known as the final velocity. And the formula that we look for final velocity. Final velocity is equal to what? Root y vy square. Let me do it. Root square root bracket open vy square plus bracket open vs square. So this velocity is known as what? Is known as final velocity. So that's what they are telling us to look for. Okay, that's the thing us to look for. Okay, if you even look at question 2, a body was projected horizontally, they are almost the same question. Calculate the speed at the touchdown. Whenever you get touchdown or something like this, you know that they are asking to calculate your final velocity. Okay, yes, so how we're going to do this? Very, very, very easy. Okay, we look for our vy, look for our vx. Remember, projectile motion there are two types of projectile motion. Projectile. You just go to our previous video on that projectile, use projectile motion as a whole. I teach everything you need to understand about projectile. I did a lot of calculation there, so you can still go there and watch the video. Okay, but I'll just be fast here. Okay, apart from that, please subscribe if you're not subscribed. Okay, you can also share it to your friends. Now, let's continue. So, projectile motion. They are projectile motion. Projectile motion, there are two types of projectile motion: horizontal motion and vertical motion. Okay, yes. Now, important thing to take note of in horizontal motion is that in horizontal motion, important thing to take note of in horizontal motion is that horizontal motion does not have acceleration. Okay, it has no g. Okay, has no gravitation g. Okay, yes. So in the horizontal motion, in projectile, the horizontal motion, it has a constant velocity. It has a constant velocity u, or it has a constant velocity. Then it has no acceleration. Right? The horizontal motion has no acceleration. That is very, very important. Okay. Yes. So we have horizontal motion. We have vertical motion. Okay. Whereas vertical motion is affected by g. The horizontal motion in projectile is not affected by g. So g is 0 in horizontal motion. In vertical motion, g is affected. Vertical motion is affected by g. Okay. So let's continue. Now remember, let me just be fast. Okay. Okay. So yeah, let me just be fast. Now, let me divide this. Okay, horizontal motion. I'll give you guys the formula: horizontal motion, then vertical motion, vertical motion. Okay. Yes. So now, remember, I told you guys that in horizontal motion, g is 0, right? There's no g, right? Yes, u is constant, right? Yes. Remember, vertical motion. There are 3 equations of vertical motion, right? Yes, which is there are 3 equations of which is v is equals to u plus minus gt, right? Yes, we also have another one s. Since we are dealing with height, it will be h equals to ut plus minus half gt square. Then the last one, v square is equals to u square plus minus 2gh, right? Yes. So horizontal motion has its own formula. Vertical motion has its own formula. Okay. Yes. So in horizontal motion, let's do it. V is equal to u plus minus gt, right? Yes. Remember, horizontal motion horizontal motion has g. No, g is 0, right? So in horizontal motion, this v is equal. Let me change the marker. Okay. So now in horizontal motion, this v equals to u plus minus gt, right? Now, since g is 0, therefore everything 0 times 3 give us 0. Therefore, this place is out, right? So therefore, in horizontal motion, the velocity is equals to what? Ux, right? Yes. So v is equals to ux. Okay, now what about the other one? H equals to ut plus minus half gt squared. Since g is 0, everything was 0. So in horizontal motion projectile, a should be equals to yeah, it should be equals to ux, then t. Now what about the last one? V square is equals to u square plus minus 2gh. See, g is 0, therefore everywhere will be 0, right? So everything here will be what? V square is equals to u square, us square, right? Yes. Okay, I'm coming on. This is vx, rather. Vx, okay, vx. So that this velocity is known as horizontal velocity. Horizontal velocity, right? So you see, so this is the formula, this is the equation. This is the equation for horizontal motion projectile, right? Now what about vertical motion? Vertical motion has g, right? G is not 0, right? So vertical motion will not be like this. V is equals to what? U plus minus gt, right? Yes, another one. A should be equals to what? Ut plus minus half gt square, right? Yes, the other one, v square is equals to u square, then plus minus 2gh, right? Yes, this plus or minus is a result of g. G always starts down, right? And I told you guys in our very first, I think in our class in mechanics, you can go watch the video, okay? So I told you guys that when G always add downward, right? Yes, using the first coordinate, going down is negative, right? So G will be negative. Yes. So even though the body is going upward, G will still be negative because we're using the first coordinate. So I'm not going to explain that here, okay? So this is formula for what? For this formula for vertical motion, right? So this one will be what? This one will be Vy, vertical velocity, right? Yes. So that is just it. Now let's go back. So we are looking for what? Vx. We're looking for what? Vy. Once you do everything, take the square root, we get our final velocity. Simple. Okay, so let's do it. So look at, they said a projectile is thrown horizontally with a speed of 20 meters per second. Look at, they said horizontally. So that is telling that the horizontal, that's telling that the horizontal velocity is what? Is 20, right? So Vs is what? 20. So we go to here, we put what? We put 20. Then not square, then the square root. Now what about Vy? Now they said the body a projectile is thrown horizontally with a speed. So horizontal, so that tell you that this u is what? The vertical velocity. This u is horizontal velocity. The horizontal velocity is 20. Right? They even mention, they say horizontally. And this one, did they mention vertically here? No. So u here will be 0. Right? Therefore, Vy will be what? Because to gt. Right? Now what is g? G is what? 9.8. Then what is time? Time is 5. So 9.8 times 5. 9.8 times 5 will give us what? Let's do it. So 9.8 times 5 will give us 49. Okay, 49. So our Vy is what? 49. Right? So whenever I see Vy, we'll put what? We put 49, then all square. Now let's do it straight. We get our V. Let's do it straight. Let me use my calculator. Let's do it straight. Okay, so square root, bracket open, 49 all square, then plus bracket open, 20 all square. So answer is 52.9. 52.9, 52.9, 52.9. Okay. So for me, I'll just, we have 52, we have 53, 52.9. So the best for me, the closest, I think the closest is this one, B, 52.9. B, B is 53. Right, so for approximately that would be 53. Okay, so this option is contemplating. This one is 52, this one is 53. So I'll choose 53. Okay, yes. Now, question 2 is the same thing, right? Question 2, let's do question 2. Okay, question 2. Let's look for Vs and Vy, then we'll put in Qt. They say a body is projected horizontally again with a speed of, so the horizontal velocity is what? Vs is what? Horizontal velocity is 45. So whenever we see Vs, we put what? 45. Then half square, then plus bracket to put bracket close. Then what about Vy? Now they said horizontally as well. Therefore, the velocity, they say the horizontal with a speed of 45. So this is the horizontal velocity. Therefore, vertical velocity is 0. The initial velocity, because normally it was thrown horizontally initially. vertical velocity is 0. There is the initial vertical velocity 0, which is this is 0. Therefore, Vy will be equals to what? GT. Okay, so let's continue. G is 9.8. Then the question time is what? 3 seconds, right? So 3. So let's do it. 9.8 times 3. Okay, 9.8 times 3 is 29.4. So Vy is what? 29.4. Then all square. Let's just do it again. Use calculator, do it straight ahead. Okay, so please don't forget to subscribe. Okay, you can still send to your friends. Okay, so square root, then bracket open, 29.4, bracket close, all square, then plus bracket open 45, bracket close, all square. So the answer is 53.75. 53.75. 53.75. So this approximately to go 54. So this is the best option to choose, which is D. Okay, yes. Now let's do the last question, which is, so this is how you do projectile question. Just know this, okay? Very, very important, okay? Now, this is the last question, question 1. Okay, so question 1, I think this question is from a vertical motion, okay? So question 1. All right. So question 1, they said a man of mass 50 kg is dropped. Okay, let's say this is a man. Okay, this is a man. Okay, this is a man. Okay, was dropped. Okay, a man of 50 kg of mass 50 kg was dropped from a height. This is the height. Okay, from here to here. This is the ground level. So this is the height. Okay, was dropped from the height. Let's call this one total height. Okay, total height. Okay. When he is at now, it was dropped from a height h. So let's just call this height total height h total. Okay, right. Then when he is at a height 50 meters above the ground, so when the man was at 50 meters above the ground, from here this is the height from 50 meters above the ground, above the 50 meters from the ground level. His velocity is what? They say at this level, the velocity is 24.5. Then his height is what? 50 meters. Okay, at what height was he dropped? So we are looking for what? Total height, right? Exactly the previous question. Now we're not looking for this total height. So at what height was this dropped? Was it dropped? They're not telling us to look for the height before this height. They're telling us to look for total height. So it's very easy. That same thing we did earlier. But now that we did, remember that very first question we did, we had to look for the velocity. Right? So now we have already got the velocity. So use formula. V square is equal to u square plus minus 2gh. Right? Since u is 0, v square because of 2gh. Right? So let's look for the total height. H. So add only for total height, divide both side by 2g. Right? Divide both side by 2g. So I'm counting this. So h should be equal to what? V square over 2g. Right? So h equals to, where is v? V is what? 24.5, then all squared, then divided by what? Take g as 9.8, right? So 2 times 9.8, which is 19.6, right? So 19.6. So let's do it. Okay, so let's do it. So bracket open, 24.5, bracket close, all square, divided by 19.6. So if we do it, we have 30. Okay, we have 30.625. So the answer, the best option here is what? I think it's 30, right? Okay, we have, okay, let me see. Okay, 30 plus, wait, they said a man, okay, let me see. When he is at a height of 15 meters from the ground level, okay, at what height was it dropped? Okay, I thought that was it dropped. Okay. I think it will be 45, okay? Because if we calculate, we have 30. 30 plus 44 plus 15 is what? Is 45. So that means this 30 that we got is from this place. Okay, so the answer is 45. Okay, the answer is 45. B. The answer is 45. B. The answer is 45. Okay. Yes. Yes, the answer is 45. Okay. This okay, we look for the height above here was, I think the height above here is 30. So 30 plus 15 give us 45. Yes. Okay. So now let's continue with the let's continue, okay? Yeah, let's continue.